Episode 6 of Seraph of the End Season 2, it was pretty brutal. Like, we got, I wouldn't say a major death, but we saw a possible important character, get killed. We saw Mika's character just act so cold and ruthless. And that right there, I definitely like. I do wish that he was a little, less absorbed with saving you and focus on himself, because you here, he can actually be a major threat if he actually gave into his vampire side. We already saw, this episode was a clear example that the powers you have, they are pretty freaking awesome. But the episode itself, it starts off now where we go to Crowley and we see now that he's surrounded by the two nobles that we saw him with, in season 1. Now, one of them is the blue-haired girl named Chess, and the other one, the other blonde one. Right now, I forgot her name, but obviously, because all three of them are nobles, especially Crowley as their leader, they're all, pretty powerful. And we even see now that, Chess, she was actually drinking on the blood of one of the Moon Demon Company members. And this guy was if not dead, he was definitely on the verge, because we see now that when Chess picked him up, this guy was just he was limp, there was no movement. And then you have the other girl, telling her, to show some class and act like a noble, because right now Chess kind of comes off like an airhead, like a ditzy girl. And we see now Crowley, even though this guy seems, that, even though Crowley is definitely, a young looking vampire, this guy definitely has some wisdom. We see now that, not only, is this guy an excellent leader, he is actually pretty smart. And I'm guessing he also must be a pretty brilliant tactician, because we see now that, he was curious to see, what weapons were stronger, the vampires or the humans. And we see now that he had picked up that demon weapon, the human weapon, and we see now he called Chest over, and just out of nowhere, he actually attacks her, and we see this girl go flying. And so obviously she actually did protect herself with her sword, but you see her make such an impact on that wall that definitely had to hurt. And so we see now that Crowley, he actually used the sword on himself. We see him now cut his finger, and of course it was not healing. And so right now he had told him, told the girls that they could drink with him. So I'm imagining that even though they're all nobles, Chess and the other girls seem more like servants to Crowley. Now I do get this guy is a leader. Now I'm not sure if maybe he's the leader of all the nobles, but obviously that the guy had a very, very high rank. And so we see now that when the blonde girl was drinking his blood, they did make it, somewhat, kind of lewd, but at the same time, she was definitely getting into it. And so right now we go back to you and and the Shinwa squad and the other squad, and then we have the not the spirit guy, because all this time I've been getting his weapon wrong, but this guy is the Trident guy. We see now that they were at some kind of park, obviously where the battle took place last week, and right now they were waiting. And so then we have some girl and we have her squad, and we see now that they were in pretty bad condition. And so right now this girl was named Aihara. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. But this girl was the leader of that squad, and we see now that, besides her, all her men were pretty banged up. And we even see now that they lost them. And we did see back at Crowley, Chest and the other girl, they had all these other humans, hung up on some kind of, not a cross, but obviously they were all hanging from some kind of wooden structure. And so that right there, I'm imagining, it's her men, because even Crowley was saying that even if she killed that one hostage that Chess would drinking some, they obviously had a lot more that they could still drink from or use for some kind of leverage. And so right now we have Aihara asking the Trident guy, just asking him about you, and we see now that the Trident guy really has made a 180 because at first, when you and first appeared, everyone was like looking down on them, but last week they really proved themselves, and right now, right now they're like getting praised, and we have you, acting very cocky and arrogant because even when Gurren showed up, and we have Gurren asking the Trident guy, how do they do? We have you here getting all close because, we have a Trident guy saying that they did a superb job, and you was like, right. And that right there called this man to like sock him. And so right now, Gurren notices obviously that Aihara, she had lost 8 men. And so right now, with them missing, she's worried that they're dead. But we have one of her own men, kind of like, kind of helping her calm down a bit, saying that, they're all elite, so there's no way, that they'll die. But I do wonder just how in the world did they all escape, because I don't believe any of them, have a black demon like the Shinra squad have, or, Gurren have. So I do wonder just how in the world were they able to kill, the vampires who were after them, or maybe, they, it's possible that those guys did not come across a noble. But right now we have Gurren, Shinra squad, and we have the Trident guy squad. They all have pulled out, and then we have the Aihara squad, staying back. And so right now we see now that when they stay behind, we have like these aircraft flying overhead. And so right now we have Aihara pulling out a weapon like Yochi's. She's a bow user. And to me, that right there was surprising because I thought maybe, Yochi was the only one that had that black demon. But no, apparently she has one because their weapons, they were pretty much the same, or maybe that right there, maybe there is a difference between them. I'm not really sure, but we see her now shooting one of the aircraft, and it blew up instantly, and that right there, was like pretty badass. But then we have the other vampires, and the other one, they all jumped out, and we see now in that one it was Mika, Yoshi's killer. I mean, Yoshi's sister killer. And the other vampire who's with them, and then we have all these fodder as well. And so we see now that, that these vampires easily, overpower these already beaten down men. And so right now we have Mika, actually pinning down Aihara. And so we see now that when he held her down, we see that, obviously they had no choice left but to use code, I believe it was like 248. And that right there is suicide, where they all been down on this pill that they have in their mouths, and that right there, that right there releases a poison into their body and kills them, almost instantly. And that right there was like very surprising. I thought maybe that, they will all take the pills, and that way, they will all get that curse power or drug power, whatever you want to call it. I thought maybe they will all use that, and that right there would allow them to fight better. But no, they all picked a quick way to go out, and we see now that when Aihara was going to do that, we have Mika, actually stopping her by putting her fingers into her mouth and pulling out her pill. And so right now, with her having no way to die, and Mika still being, somewhat of a good guy, he was like trying to plead with her, telling her to like, just play dead and they won't know you're alive. Just tell me where you is. And so we see now that this girl, she was not going to rat out, you at first. And we see now, Mika here really did not want to kill her. So he actually was going to let her live. And that right there, we saw it because he was like walking away. But no, this girl is so freaking stupid. She actually got up and put a knife to his neck, and apparently even that little knife, it was like some kind of like a demon weapon, that right there had a demon in it, as we saw it now, cutting his neck, and we see like the ashes coming from that wound. So obviously, that wound was not healing anytime soon. And also we have also there was like one scene where we have Shinya and Gurren, like they were like walking and talking because Gurren thought Shinya was like going to complain about something, And I don't know if maybe that was like dust or what, but it seemed like ashes of a vampire were like coming off Goran, because that right there, was a little weird to me. Like maybe I'm looking far too deep into that scene, but it did seem kind of off. But going back to Mika and Aihara, we see now Mika here was like done playing, and we see him not only disarm her, but he also broke her arm, and that right there was like so freaking badass. And not only that, the way he was treating her, where he like kicked her while she like already down and made her pass out. You would think they would like leave it there, but no, Aihara got back up because Aihara did eventually tell Mika where you was, going to City Hall. But then we see now that when she was like begging for her life, or planned to be begging for her life, she actually gave them, a false location and also a false target. And we see now that the vampire, who seems, kind of like, I want to say maybe drowsy, or he looks rather sleepy all the time. This guy is obviously a lot smarter than he looked, because he was like, they already know their target location, and they know their target name, and that right there is not a good thing. And also we have Crowley wondering who's like putting the strings behind this, because he called names like Kroll, Farid, and when he said human, I'm guessing that he meant Mika, because we all know that he was the human turned into a vampire, and that right there it's like a taboo among them. But obviously, he was saying there's no way Mika could be doing this. So I do wonder, who is this traitor, among the vampire, and who also is a traitor among the humans. These two characters right now are definitely something, in the series to obviously keep an eye out for. And so right now, when like Mika was like leaving her behind for good, because we have the vampire, telling him to like bring her along, we see her now getting up once again, because she realized that they were like going to kill her anyway, so she might as well go out on her own terms. And we see her now trying to attack Mika. She obviously missed, because right now her aim is definitely not that good, because she has a broken arm, and obviously she is not in the best shape because of how her body is. And we have Mika just turn around, and you see her like slashing once, and that slash has made this like shockwave, and we see like nothing but red as it actually hits her, and we see her now, like leaving this cut. And so right now, in her final moments, she was talking, but we have no idea what she was saying. But as she laid there lifeless, and the other vampires, had left her, Mika was like wondering if she really did protect him, because obviously she had told him the truth, but not the other guy, because she had called you by his nickname, which I'm pretty sure is something only her comrade would actually know. And so right now, because of that, Mika here, he definitely has some doubts. And we see now that, right now, Mika is finally making his own plans, because what he wants to do is to get a team of pretty much fodder, really, and go check out the intel that Aihara gave him. And so right now, I'm pretty sure Mika might kill those other vampires, because they are noble. So I'm pretty sure they'll die rather easily. So maybe Mika will kill them, or some way, get them to be killed, and then go rescue you on his own. And so right now we see, you here, obviously, he some way felt something, because when Shinwa asked him, he was like, it seemed to be getting pretty cloudy, and she was like, that is a good sign for an ambush or a battle. And we see now that the whole squad was together, and right now they're about to make their move and attack Crowley, and that right there was like pretty good setup. Next week should be definitely hype, but this episode, like I said, it was pretty dang good. Mika being cold and ruthless, I was definitely digging that, and of course the setup, it was there. I do wonder if maybe they can kill Crowley. For some reason I highly doubt that, but I cannot wait to see how this battle plays out. But as always, let me know what you guys thought, and please do not forget to like and subscribe, because it really helps me out. But as always, you gotta take it easy, and I will see you all next time.